Okay, dirty moderates. This is your midterm hangover edition. Thanks to everyone who joined us last night on this marathon event. Obviously, we're not doing election night anymore. We're doing election week or weeks or days on end because these races are going down to the wire. Of course, first and foremost, one thing we do know about 24 hours later is that there was no red wave. Call it a red trickle, call it a red drip, 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 call it a red, I don't know, splatter, but it's no wave, no tsunami. And you are looking at what is going to be a very, very, very close Senate, which we've been used to. We've got a 50-50 Senate, and the House of Representatives looks incredibly close. So right now, where we are, just so you know, is that there are 206 Republicans with 14 pickups. There's 218 seats needed to win, by the way, a majority in the House. There's 206 Republicans. That's 14 pickups. There's 187 Democrats. That's 4 pickups. The Senate right now is 48 Democrats with 1 pickup and 49 Republicans. That 1 pickup was John Fetterman, thankfully defeating Mehmet Oz in the Keystone State of Pennsylvania. But what I really want to talk about before we get into even some more of the data is Trumpism is on the rocks. Trumpism, the scourge, the poison, the toxin, guess what? Sorry, MAGA, ain't proven that popular, right? And even Republicans don't want you anymore, right? They don't. You know why? There's the younger, newer, better version, the smart version, the version with discipline, the version who isn't a MAGA lunatic, like him or not. And that's Ron DeSantis, who won the governorship in Florida by 19 points. Okay, so just almost a huge win in one of the biggest states. Florida clearly has gone decidedly red, but he really is their future. If I were a Republican strategist, it would be the dump Trump movement as quick as we can and get Ron ready for 2024 because he's as viable, a sure thing, or closest to a sure thing the Republicans could possibly have. But that being said, so many Trump candidates yesterday lost. Lauren Boebert, who is, especially egregious, who walks around with a gun and got a GED because she couldn't get through high school. She is only in a very, very tight race with a guy named Mark Frisch in the Colorado Springs area, but she is it's going to be like a dead heat, basically. But to think that she's really on ice, unfortunately, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, all of those people got reelected. But we have to look at some of the data that's come in from the Senate races. So as you know, there are 2 states we should be looking at really, and I talked about that with Mike Madrid last night. It's Arizona and Nevada. Okay, all eyes on that. Right now, Blake Kelly, excuse me for my hangover. Mark Kelly and Blake Masters are locked in a tight race, 73% of the vote in, 51.2% for Kelly, 46.6%. This is, of course, John McCain's home state, Barry Goldwater's home state. And actually, I think Kelly's going to hold. I don't see that, even though it's only 3/4 of the vote in. I still don't see it changing all that much. If it does, I think it's going to be a lot of ground for Masters to make up. And why do I say that? I'm not making this shit up. Maricopa County in Phoenix and Scottsdale, where the bulk of the votes are from, if there are any sort of rural votes outstanding, they're not going to be nearly enough to make up any kind of difference. They would be, of course, for Masters. But like in 2020, Arizona has been trending purple. Biden carried it. And it is sort of moving away, you might say, from its traditional Republican moorings and finding a, let's say, dirty moderate position. So you're seeing that now. That being said, I don't want you to celebrate too soon because Kari Lake is only 0.2% behind Katie Hobbs. Okay, so 73% of the vote in there, 50.1% for Hobbs, 49.9% from Lake. This is really, really, really horrific for a lot of reasons. Kari Lake is absolutely a rising Republican star should she win. She's a professional election denier. She's a professional bullshitter. She is going to be horrible, and she would be a voice. She would be, again, the velvet package or the smooth package MAGA voice. That would be a real comer. So I'm deeply worried about that. On to Nevada. Nevada seems to be going the opposite direction. Nevada is moving more toward being red. Nevada, I went over with Mike Madrid last night, was a red state back in the 70s and 80s for a long time. Then Bill Clinton made it blue. George W. Bush took it back to being red. And since Obama, it's been red, but decreasingly so. Obama's 2 elections, you saw him win it big in 2008, and 2012 was less than Hillary carried it in her losing year of 2016. And Biden did the poorest of the 4 of them this year, despite winning the state, despite beating Trump there. But Nevada is looking like they are not singing such a blue song anymore. Mike Madrid spoke of the Culinary Workers Union there, heavily Democratic, that was put together by Harry Reid, longtime Senate Majority Leader. And there is a tight race for the Senate and a really, really, really what looks like not that tight a race for the governorship. So right now, you've got Catherine Cortez Masto. She is the most endangered incumbent, locked in a very tight race, as I said, with Adam Laxalt. Here's the thing about Adam Laxalt. He is now MAGA. He is the grandson of Paul Laxalt, governor of Nevada, senator from Nevada, classic Reagan Republican, honorable guy, mainstream conservative. This is his grandson, and he is on the Trump train. Right now, he's about 22,000 plus votes ahead, as I said, of Masto. They are waiting on, Nevada is, 100,000 mail-in votes from mainly Clark County, which is Las Vegas, and then a smaller county called Washoe, and a little bit of rural votes. So that means that Clark County is overwhelmingly Democratic. The question is, are there enough votes in that batch? Nevada data geeks are saying that Masto is going to need about or just shy of 2/3 of those votes to win this thing. They don't know that there's enough of them out there. There are also votes in Washoe County, which is also Democratic, but there are rural votes out there lingering. Rural Nevada is very red, and that might be 3,000 to 4,000 votes that are going to go right into Laxalt's count. So I have to tell you, I hate to do this and say it, but I do believe at the end of the day, Laxalt is going to be the next senator from the state of Nevada. I don't have any more data than the data I'm giving you, but the insiders seem to say it's a bit of a climb. Masto can pull it off, but that is the bad news. So that, again, is a wash with Fetterman, and that leaves, and assuming Mark Kelly wins in Arizona, that leaves what we know now is another runoff. Herschel Walker, the unfit, incompetent, ridiculous, addle-brained, moron, former running back who has no business doing anything. He's just a stooge. He is within a hair's breadth, 48.7% right now. Since neither he nor incumbent Senator Warnock got 50%, or 50% plus one, as they call it, we have to go to a runoff. So yes, again, like in 2020, there were those 2 runoffs where John Ossoff and Warnock got in. We're going to have to do that again. This runoff is set for December 6th, I believe. That was a January runoff. So we don't know. So we really could be even by the end of this week, waiting, or by the end of next week, whenever all these ballots are counted, until December when there's that runoff. Now, there's a couple good things about that, though, that I think could be good for the Democrats. First off, all resources and mobilization efforts will be focused on one race. That will be Warnock's race. Warnock is very popular among Democrats. He's seen as a rising star. He's been very well liked in the Senate cloakroom. All the stops are going to be pulled out, and I think you're going to see the big guns come out. Obama will do it. Biden will do it. Bill Clinton do it. The way Obama closed these last few days, I think, really helped the Democrats in Pennsylvania and elsewhere. He and Bill Clinton, nobody can close like them, and they really, really got out there, and I think it made a difference. So I think that will be one thing. The reason I think Walker is in a less favorable position, and I'm not trying to be overly optimistic, but it's important to know, Brian Kemp was on the ticket this time. He beat Stacey Abrams handily for the governorship. And so but there isn't going to be that sort of pull this time. It's going to be him alone against Warnock. Georgia is purple, but if the donuts around Atlanta, they call them, that's a 27 county area, if they can mobilize, where they've been mobilizing more and more Democratic now, even Hillary carried a big percentage of them while losing the state, Warnock could probably squeak in and retain his seat. And we would have, assuming Kelly wins in Arizona, and like I said, Fetterman, of course, won, and Laxalt's going to be 51-49 red. Okay. Is that right? Am I doing that right? Yeah. Sorry, I'm just hungover, guys. 51-49. So that's a Republican Senate. Okay, so it's not a red wave. We are doing a red trickle, but again, in the House of Representatives, like I said, right now there are it's 207 GOP to 187 Democrats, 14 pickups, but 218 needed to win the chamber. 14 pickups is needed for the Republicans now. Is that right? They need 14 more pickups, and the Democrats need 4 pickups. Well, that doesn't make sense.
No, they need 12.
They need 12 pickups. Right. They need 12 pickups. That's right. So anyway, it's all down to the wire, guys. Let me just quickly back to Nevada, the governor's race. Frank Lombardo's at 50.6%. Steve Sisolak at 45.8%. I think he was hurt by COVID shutdowns in Vegas. And again, it's interesting because they're counting the ballots of the governor's race while they're counting the ballots of the Secretary of State race. Horrible guy running there named Mark Fincham, but also the big Senate race. It's all being counted at the same time. So it's interesting that, Masto seems to have done quite a bit better than Sisolak did. But again, these are important because remember, who the governors are of these states are going to determine a lot about 2024. The secretaries of state oversee the elections, and it's very, very, very important that they remain in the hands of certainly Democrats, but non-election deniers. I mean, I can't say entirely Democrats because Brad Raffensperger, reelected last night after defeating a Trump-backed lunatic in his primary, will be in Georgia. And as we know, he stood up to Trump and he will do the honorable thing. As far as we know, of course, they'll have a Republican governor, but Brian Kemp stood up to Trump. So what we're seeing a little bit, which I think is interesting, is a lot of concessions, right? But for a couple of lunatics like Doug Mastriano, who got blown out in Pennsylvania by Josh Shapiro, you are seeing the concession. Mehmet Oz is already called. John Fetterman, you're sort of seeing a return maybe to a little bit. Again, I'm just trying to use verbiage that isn't necessarily exact. Maybe a little more equilibrium here. A little more normal. I was talking to my producers before. I'm hoping this could eventually reset the Republican Party to an honorable conservative party. So in this country, we have 2 choices, 2 viable choices, not America or Trumpism, because as I say, you can't have both. So that is not what we want. In other pieces of just random news, though, this isn't particularly encouraging. It's actually rather depressing. You know that Greg Abbott won handily over Beto O'Rourke for the Texas governorship, winning a 3rd term. The city of Uvalde, yes, the site of that horrible massacre, went for Abbott. I'm just reporting. Uvalde voted for Abbott. And I know you're nonplussed, you're mystified, you're horrified, you don't know what to say. I don't think anybody does. And I don't have an explanation. They certainly didn't want Beto. It is a more rural area. One of my producers is from Texas, and he gives me great insight into that. And it's still rural. The D is a toxic label. And also Beto was not a moderate. I know Democrats had this love affair. He's a decent guy. Yes, I like the guy. Of course, I would have voted for him in Texas, but he's not exactly a good old boy for Texas. Let's put it that way. Just as much as Stacey Abrams really isn't terribly viable in Georgia. But that being said, they both lost. They're good people. I appreciate their service to this country, but it's time to go home, and we need to get off those trains and move on because the train is moving forward. The DeSantis Express is coming, okay? And the Trump train seems like it's derailing, all right? And it seems like there'll be a lot of ship jumping here. Inside Republican caucus scuttlebutt today is they are furious at Trump. He's apparently furious, blaming Melania for Mehmet Oz. And so there's going to be a lot of chaos now because Trump was, of course, poised to announce supposedly on the 15th of November next week that he's running. I still wager that he will run. And here's what I mean. This is the day after. There's always an immediate reaction. Absolutely, I believe everything I say about DeSantis. I think the Republicans know where their bread is buttered. But I think it's hard for Trump not to run. Is Donald Trump, the malignant narcissist, going to just sit back and watch Ron DeSantis take the glory and run for 2024? Ron can wait. Ron's 44. He's 4 years younger than I am. Ron should wait. Ron waits till 28. He's probably the president, probably, because it'd be 8 years of Democratic rule, let's say. So there you go. So I don't know, but Trump is very much in the running. I will say to Democrats and out there, the teeth gnashers and the worriers and the people who are very upset about what Trump represents, myself chief among them, to this democracy, Trump is a beatable entity. He is a weak candidate. Joe Biden gave a press conference, a very sturdy, reassuring press conference today that, of course, was classy and only the way President Biden can be, and saying he plans to run again. We're thinking, I mean, that's the idea. And if people think he shouldn't, well, watch him. He's pretty confident. So I just wanted to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I really think Trump is in the race. And so we could have a Biden-Trump rematch. Now, I will say this, and I don't want anybody to freak out, but remember, I'm not here to hawk for a political party. I'm here to not do spin. I think America deserves better than Biden versus Trump 2.0. Of course, I think the president should be reelected if he runs. I think he's done an honorable job of, as he puts it, restoring the soul of the country. I think last night, thanks to the youth vote, by the way, overwhelmingly, 65 to 35, the youth vote, 18 to 29-year-olds, are the reason that there's a lot of blue on that map. Every other group went majority Republican. The polls didn't pick that up. Polls were wrong again. Okay, this is the fourth cycle now where polls are proving more and more unreliable. Not all polls, not suggesting the science of polling is flawed, but something's flawed out there, and they're going to have to figure out what that is. But you know, the youth did a lot and saved the day. You know, the electorate, the older electorate's dying out, and these are the future voters, and they in Gen Z, you know, like I said, 18 to 29-year-old, a little bit of you know, early millennials, I guess they're gonna vote Democratic, as young people do, and they proved very, very decisive. They were decisive, by the way, in 2018 when the Democrats won the House during the Trump years, and even we don't know yet because there is still a pathway, people are saying, for the Democrats to retain the House and the Senate. That could happen at the end of this, and you can thank the kids. Kids are all right. You know, we owe them if that happens. And that could, my prediction still is that we're probably going to end up with a Democratic Senate, I guess, and a Republican House. But I don't know. It keeps changing, the data, and I don't know. Oh, also, by the way, for those that don't know, Maura Healey was elected governor of Massachusetts last night. She's a Democrat. She's the first lesbian governor. And so that's exciting. But we'll see what happens in this as this data comes forward. I know we got to counsel patience. Trump, as of today, according to CNN, has a 39% approval rating. I can't believe it's that high. But in other news, just so you know that gerrymandering is a huge problem in this country. You look at states, for example, Tennessee, many of them where the Democrats can win, 2/3 of the votes and only win like a small percentage of the seats because of the way the districts are drawn, which is to say unfairly, really pushing majority Republican votes into districts that can overall help them carry the state. Well, there's a redistricting there's a census every 10 years, and we reappraise this. But in 2018, actually, Michigan had an independent commission. This is really good news, redistrict. And guess what? Because it was not a partisan gerrymandering exercise, it was independently carved out districts. The Michigan State Senate, for the first time in 40 years, is blue. So there you go. Because that's the will of the people. Gretchen Whitmer, terrific governor of Michigan, she was reelected. Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, reelected. Michigan is saying we don't want MAGA, right? They're not saying they want AOC. They're not saying they want far left, but they don't want MAGA. So guess what? Pennsylvania flipped too. Michigan is all blue now between the House and the state House and state Senate, and Pennsylvania did the same thing in their legislature. So that is good. Again, not to put too fine a point on it, but you know, Pennsylvania really was impressive last night. I mean, the fact that Fetterman, after that abysmal debate performance, could defeat the snake oil salesman. We're also happy that he did, is a great blessing. The race, though, that I was the most thrilled about was the governor's race, because Josh Shapiro, current attorney general of Pennsylvania, won handily and beat a January 6th insurrectionist, election denying, white supremacist pal named Doug Mastriano, who, by the way, as of this broadcast, has still not conceded, though he lost by, I think, 9 points or more. So anyway, but I wanted to just point that out. And also in Texas, you have to look at who voted, not you can't just say this is the way they went because this is how all the voters wanted it, because all the voters didn't vote. 12 million people in Texas didn't vote. 12 million. Get the state you deserve, guys. I'll never understand Uvalde. I'll never understand Greg Abbott. I'll never get it. And I'm coming to you from Austin. And I love this city. And I think this state deserves better than what it's getting. So, that's that. Other disappointments last night, the defeat of Elaine Luria, Virginia Beach Congresswoman who's on the January 6th committee. She was beaten. So that seat stayed red. Laura Kelly, who you probably don't know, she's this terrific governor in Kansas, a Democrat, was reelected. So it turns out, and it's a good segue for abortion rights in Kansas prevailed, and I think that vote materialized in red Kansas. Kansas hasn't voted for a Democrat in a national election for president since LBJ in 1964. Right. And prior to that, they went with Alf Landon over FDR, in those New Deal years because they're Kansans. He was a Kansan. So just to show you how red it is, abortion last night was approved handily in Michigan, Vermont, and in deep red Kentucky. Well, the question in Kentucky is, should the Constitution be amended so that abortion should not be protected? And voters said no. Right. Michigan made sure it was enshrined in the Constitution, as did Vermont. Overwhelmingly. So the Dobbs decision is proof that the majority, not just American women, but the American people, but certainly women who were fired up, do not want a theocratic Supreme Court and a theocratic government telling them what to do with their bodies. And as we say around here, and we got merchandise that says it, freedom means freedom for everyone. Freedom means freedom for everyone. That means that if we're going to advocate, or if one is going to advocate for a smaller government, a government that regulates less and taxes less, and there's validity to that, guys, right? The national debt's $30 trillion now. There's validity to a government that isn't runaway. The government, by all means, then shouldn't be getting in the way of who I marry, of what a woman should do with her body, of any of that. All of that should be hands off. So should marijuana. In my opinion, so should prostitution. Get the government out of this. It's not your business. Okay? I know people are going, oh, I don't know. Lose the Puritanism. And for all the Puritans out there, fuck off. It's time to move on. Okay? Find something else to do. Find other witches to burn. So, I don't know what else to say. Fuck you guys. But speaking of merch, I plugged it last night. Go to tpublic.com, right? tpublic.com. And up there they are. We have so many cute ones. We've, of course, got a pride one. There we have. Freedom means freedom for everyone. Just know that babies, moms, you can buy them in all sorts of sizes and about 15 different colors. Vote like my future depends on it. Stay dirty, stay moderate. That's the name of my weekly monologue. Fight like hell for democracy. That's what we do. This project is ongoing. Don't get complacent about last night, not only because we still don't know the results, but even though things seemed a little cooler, democracy does not take a vacation and doesn't get exasperated like us. Fight like hell for democracy. The old tried and true, don't vote, don't bitch. Hey, Texas, 12 million of you. We got to hear from you now when you didn't show up at the polls. Okay, you derelict citizens. Vote like my future depends on it. It does, right? Dirty Moderate Nation, that's us. That's our brand, dirtymoderate.com. You find all of our current episodes, our merchandise, everything, our newsletter. Fabulous tote bag here, guys. And saving democracy one episode at a time. That's what we do here. So, given that's supposed to be an Ask Me Anything, I'm just looking to see, do we have any immediate questions that I should answer? And if not, I can see some. Or, hi, Mom. Hi, Mom and Michael. And there was someone up there. I didn't catch who that was. Oh, there you go. Jeremy's mom, our producer's mom. Hi, Heather. If the GOP, let me just read this. If the GOP takes the House and Dems control the Senate, do we have another do-nothing Congress full of government shutdowns for the next 2 years? Yeah, you have gridlock. You have major gridlock. I think what you're going to see in the House is them start to use the debt limit as always as a weapon, and say every every time the money comes around to be due, they're going to say no more money. Just a little note on the debt limit, by the way. There's a misunderstanding, and this is something we're going to do as we move into our civics lessons later in this year. The debt limit is money that has already been spent and is due now. Okay. It is not we're spending, but listen, I'm not defending government spending. I think it's obscene, but we are spending money. But when that debt limit comes up, that's the credit card bill you get at the end of the month. You've already spent the money. It's not don't spend the money. You've spent it and you don't want to pay the bill. That's how it works in Washington. I worked in Washington. That's how it works. And they don't tell you this, but the Republicans don't want you to know this. They're going to scream about the national debt. Guys, you can't go, and this includes the military. You can't spend $700 billion on the military and not pay them. That's all that's going on, and you can't pay it off. You got to pay it in full. It's like an Amex. There's no layaway, but you've spent it. So anyway, I hope that answers how did Katie Porter do? Mom's asking. I don't know. I could look that up. What is with the polls that is a big problem? I can't answer it from a data perspective. I will tell you that I don't know who they poll. If you read those polls, I don't know if we say they're landlines or I've never been called ever. Now, that's anecdotal. It doesn't mean anything. But if I ask people, I don't know anybody that gets a call from Gallup or Reuters or any of these places, even Trafalgar, the right-leaning poll, and says, like, what's going on? So I don't know if they're polling the right people. I unfortunately can't answer it. I'd love to do a couple episodes on it. I'd love to study it. I'm really fascinated by polling and methodology and what a representative sample means. And obviously, I'm not knocking the science of it, but somebody's doing something wrong. Their math is probably right based on who they poll, but they're not polling people who affect this election, presumably, right? I guess that's how it works. I don't know. Mitch McConnell's saying he doesn't believe he ever predicted a red wave. Well, I don't know what he predicted. I will say this about McConnell, Mr. Yertle the Turtle. He wanted, to his credit, and listen, not here to give anybody credit that you guys don't like. I don't like him either, but he wanted moderates to run. He did say, being the wily cat that he is, these extremists are going to be the end of the Republicans. They're going to pull the ticket down. They're going to be Trumpers, and America doesn't want it. So let's see. Is there hope for any Republican to cross over to vote with the Dems in Congress? Possibly. Unfortunately, all the Republicans but one, I think, that voted to impeach Trump lost. Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are not there. They were doing it quite a bit because they're patriots. In the Senate, Mitt Romney might. Susan Collins might. So what do I think Trump is doing right now? Yelling, screaming, probably alternating between being depressed. He probably has every TV on. So in the White House, and I know this from someone who worked in the White House, he had the row of TVs every morning and every channel. So he was watching Morning Joe. He was watching Fox. He wasn't just watching Fox. He wanted to see all the haters. So I'm sure he's listening to this and listening to his name rightfully dragged through the mud and characterized as poison, which it is, and he must be losing his shit. He's blaming, I think I said earlier, blaming Melania for Mehmet Oz. He said, by the way, in an interview yesterday on Fox, or Monday, you can go look online and see it. He said, if the Republicans win, I take credit. And if they lose, I don't take any of the blame. He said, sounds just like Trump, doesn't it? What is Ron DeSantis doing right now? Loving it. Oh, and they asked Biden, what do you think about this whole DeSantis-Trump thing at the press conference today? And Biden said, I'd love to see them go at it. Hey, that isn't bad for the Democrats. I will tell you, though, Ron DeSantis is a very serious candidate where Donald Trump is a buffoon. So that is something to watch out for, but we don't know what's going to happen. Again, Trump is not yet off the stage. I do believe he will announce. I do believe an indictment will come at some point, and that will make him more popular among the lunatics, and it'll make him run. Who will be speaker? This is so interesting. just an hour before we went on, Marjorie Taylor Greene was asked, will she commit to Speaker Kevin McCarthy if the Republicans win the House? She said, no comment. So Mike Madrid of the program said last night, if it's not a Kevin McCarthy, who, by the way, has been Trump's big butt smoocher, he was an establishment Republican who gave up everything. I'm not a fan of his, but he was no lunatic. Represents Bakersfield, California. He's by all accounts a traditional conservative. He became a bootlicker. He became a sycophant, or to use that great fancy word, a lickspittle, right? Trump's obsequious little dog, and he may be tossed outside and into the doghouse because they may use good old Jim Jordan, Mr. Uber intellect there, Mr. High IQ, as the Speaker of the House. That ought to be amazing, right? That ought to be something. So what a stupid idiot. But we don't know. I don't know. But, the other thing to note that it's seemingly not going to be, so there wasn't a red wave, but there wasn't a huge vote margin for the Republicans. There won't be a huge vote margin for the Republicans at the end of the day. We do know that, which means that in a narrow House majority, this sounds counterintuitive, but it's not, the small MAGA people will have an outsized voice. They are going to try to commandeer the party. There's going to be a real war now between Trumpism and his people and the rest of them. If they take down McCarthy, that's the first thing. Liz Cheney was in the House Leadership Conference. She was number 3 before she was voted out. This crowd will go in, dog at a bone, and vote them out. So I expect to see lunatics in charge thoroughly. Speaking of lunatics and a depressing bit of news for those that didn't know, former Trump press secretary, Miss Smokey Eye, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, elected governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton's home state, also a state Mike Huckabee, her dad, served. When do we see hold on. Does last night give more GOPers permission to back away from Trump slowly and get back to business? Yes. And if he turns out to recede or his presidential run seems to be really shaky, that will have a lot to do with it. But permission, they all are dying too. So you could see some of that. What could happen is the proxy for Trump could be the mutant clown caucus, as Rick Wilson calls them, the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, the Jim Jordan. And there could be an answer to that question. A lot of more mainstream Republicans using them as a foil. So they're like the proxy to beat up on Trump. They could be the foil in that instance. An Ohio State wrestling coach who could not pass a bar exam. That's very true about Jim. When do we see, yes, wrestlers were sexually abused and he was right there and knew about it, did nothing. There's a documentary coming out on it, by the way, just so you know, you can Google this. I forgot when, HBO. A Cheney Kinzinger ticket would be fabulous for this country. We should be so lucky. I'd be hard-pressed not to vote for them. I don't really even care who the Democrat would be. I think they'd be good for America. They also would wrestle the Republican Party back from complete lunacy and at least maybe give some semblance of normalcy. And let us have a center-right government that is not a fucking lunatic fringe. What's more dangerous, the Mutant Clown Caucus or the Squad? That's very interesting. All of the Squad got reelected last night, alas. I think that's a horror show. Young people like the Squad, and they energized, as I said, a lot of these blue votes, not just for the Squad, but big time there. Look, I think that the right is more dangerous because these are the democracy-denying, insurrectionist-loving Trumpers. I have all my ideological problems with AOC and Ilhan Omar, but they're not really trying to overthrow democracy. Do I think that they pose danger electorally to the Democrats? I do, because I think they're poison in a general election. They hurt the Democrats down ballot in 2020, which is why the Democrats didn't have more seats because they lost 12 for this election because of defund the police. Okay, so Cori Bush, who's in the Squad, Ilhan Omar, Ilana Presley. Okay, they ran on all that defund the police. They wouldn't back down, and it hurt moderate Democrats down ballot, which is why there weren't as many left to fight to see another day this time. So that's very important to know. Results in Nevada and Arizona still have not changed. Let's see. Is it more likely that we see a heel GOP or a third moderate party emerge? Isn't that interesting? Well, I went to the Forward Party convention. You guys saw last night, we teased the episode with the founders of the Forward Party, former Democrat. It was published last week. Oh, it's published next week. Right. Okay. Published next week. We teased it, so you'll be able to hear the whole episode. You at least saw it. Andrew Yang, former Democratic presidential candidate, and Governor Christine Todd Whitman, former truly moderate Republican of New Jersey from the 90s, have started the Forward Party. So in answering about the Forward Party, saying that they are offering a fully local state and national party, not just to run for president, but to offer people a third way, ranked choice voting, less partisanship. Not exactly clear how they're going to evolve, but I had a really good sit down with the two of them, and your guys are going to be very excited to hear the episode when it drops next week. Our good friend Corey Nathan says he has confidence Clark County will pull through with enough votes for the Dems to win. Well, I think, yeah, because I guess I do, because I'm predicting this 51-49 Senate, which means that Warnock wins and Masto wins. Fetterman picked up, right? And that would put us at 51-49. I am more nervous, Corey, about Masto, because as of an hour ago, the real inside Nevada people who had said Masto was likely to win last week pulled that prediction back last night. So again, she has to win of these outstanding mail-in ballots in Clark County. She has to win about 2/3. The question is, will she? Probably in Vegas. But we don't know. I think Warnock wins in the runoff for the reasons I said. I think he's going to have tremendous mobilization. I don't think it's easy, but I think Walker is going to be out there stranded. What are they going to do? Bring Trump to Georgia? He's poison. They don't want him. I mean, the truth of the matter is there are bigger guns in the Democratic Party, I think, to push Warnock over the edge. What a tragedy if he lost, number one, but what a tragedy if he lost to Herschel Braindead Walker. And I'm not trying to be a horrible person when I say that, but there's obviously something wrong with this guy. Mike Madrid says Ron DeSantis and Trump are both beatable in 2024. What about Tucker Carlson? Oof. Well, I've always worried Tucker would run. I think he is a sleazy but appealing candidate to a lot of these people. He's insane, but again, he's packaged well, like Kerry Lake, packaged well. And he is a traitor. Yeah, I mean, he's been pushing the Russia propaganda, as had Fox, for a long time, especially as Ukraine's been battered by Putin and his forces in the largest land war since Europe. There was a retreat today in Russia, by the way. They moved out of a territory called Kherson. It looked like Ukraine rallied a bit. That was kind of lost in the news. But which show has the best election coverage, CNN, Fox, or Dirty Moderate? Well, of course, Dirty Moderate. That's why everybody watched us, because listen, guys, you hear me. I'm not going to sit here and just feed you the DeSantis is evil and Trump is bad. I'm going to just tell you what I feel, because politics is actually more of an art than a science. And Mike Madrid has said that. As much as we need the data and we need the numbers, we always do need numbers. They tell a story. The art of it is, why does a Ron DeSantis win by 19 points? Why was Bill Clinton magical? How come George W. Bush was so likable? These are intangibles, and they do translate into electoral wins at all levels. So we got to take those things into account. But why don't they go live in Russia? I agree. I mean, my God, they don't even realize what they have here. And it's been great. We've given, I think the number is like 80 billion at this point, but Jeremy, you can check. I don't want to misreport. In terms of aid to Ukraine, at this point, it might be 70 billion. I can't remember, somewhere between 50 and 80. But the point being is we've done that and helped Ukraine without putting boots on the ground. And I think Biden's leadership on Ukraine, and I've said it again and again, is the best foreign policy since George Herbert Walker Bush and James Baker, then Secretary of State, first Bush, on the first Gulf War. I really do. I think it's been a masterful coalition of allies across the world. Right, 76 billion. There you go. So I was said 50, between 50 and 80. 76 billion has been given to Ukraine, and we should give them what they want. But anyway, I want to point out that a foreign policy win. And the other thing I want to say, big takeaway from last night: inflation's rough, gas prices, but you know what? Abortion and democracy still mattered. America gave me faith last night. It did. Even if there is a nominal red House and a nominal red Senate, it gave me faith. My big takeaway too is Joe Biden isn't as unpopular as both the right-wing media sphere and the pundit class on the news says he is. America won. And Biden gets to stay the course. You know, he's not to blame. But Americans who've been so upset about these, rightfully so, they're not concerns that should be dismissed. But I think Americans went, wow, there's abortion. We lost that right? Not just women. As I said, when that happened with Dobbs, I said, of course women are going to be mobilized, but so will the husbands and the boyfriends and the brothers and the fathers. Those who aren't fucking cretins are like, you're doing that to my girl, whoever that girl may be in your life. And then you know what? January 6th isn't even 2 years ago. They fucking attacked the Capitol. Never forget what they did. They tried to invalidate the 2020 election, 81 million free and fair votes. The safest election. Last night was very safe too, by the way, because we had David Levine on. Safe. That's what they tried to do. Outside of demographics, what is making, oh, hello, Gladys and Mike. I love these guys. Outside of demographics, what is making certain states more purple, more specifically North Carolina, Georgia? Well, population changes. First of all, North Carolina has the Research Triangle. Anyone that's been there knows. Charlotte and Raleigh and all those cities tend a little bit more blue. North Carolina's always had a divided comportment, to use a big word, because it's always both elected hard right people and then solid Democrats, John Edwards and whatever. People are moving there. They're moving to Georgia too. People are fleeing other blue states, Arizona too. Not all California, but they're moving from different places and coming to North Carolina for their economy or their tax rates, depending upon where you move, like the way people have moved to Texas. Texas is not seeing that kind of change. But that's why North Carolina, it should be noted, is a very interesting state because, as I said to Mike last night, they had far-right lunatic Jesse Helms, and then they had Terry Sanford, who was a great Democrat. This was back in the 80s and 90s. Obama carried it very narrowly in 08. Of course, that was such a big election because he made history. But Biden almost got it. I think Madrid said it was 1.5 points away. So, and originally I had on my 2020 map, I got 306, believe it or not, but I had North Carolina swap for Georgia or something like that. I can't remember, but I didn't predict Georgia, but North Carolina. So North Carolina is the new swing state. Here, let me say this to people listening. Here are states that are no longer swing states in 2024: Ohio, Iowa, Florida. Okay, they are not swing states. Iowa, Ohio, Florida. They're gone. Forget them. Okay, here's what are swing states: North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, okay, and Nevada. Nevada is still a swing state, trending red. Watch it, though, because it was an important part of the coalition for Biden this year. We don't just focus on Wisconsin. Speaking of Ron Johnson, a horrible man, was reelected as senator. But again, the Democrats went ahead and nominated a guy named Mandela Barnes, who is one of these progressive guys, too progressive for the cheeseheads. Okay, they nominated this guy, and they were cheeseheads. Okay, final predictions for Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia Senate races. Mark Kelly will win. Raphael Warnock will win. And I'm so on the fence about this because I've said 51-49. Masto is still embattled. I'll tell you what, I'm going to say Masto edges it out, but I admittedly say I need to know how those mail-in ballots are coming in because that's going to be anything. That's going to be it all. Clark County, Vegas, the last 100,000 mail-in ballots are there. There are also some rural votes to come in. This could be a problem. She needs that 63% or whatever it is. If 3,000 to 5,000 votes sitting around in rural areas come in, they're all going to be red for sure. That could cost her. And we have no movement right now. 99%. Oh, that's the Walker vote. Okay. So why don't children learn the 3 branches of government? Well, I don't know. We are civically, I said this yesterday and I feel somewhat vindicated because America didn't choose fascism last night. They really rejected it. The voting of candidates, and I said this even in 2016, isn't all malice. It's ignorance. We are civically ignorant, to your question, and educationally derelict. which is why, and I know everybody didn't go to college, and everyone doesn't have to go to college. When we start talking about student loan debt and that whole debate, well, a lot of most Americans don't go to college. We shouldn't be proud of that. Why were you proud of that? Yes, we need plumbers and welders and blacksmiths. Yes, of course, but we need educated people. We need humanities thinkers. We need people of critical thinking skills, right? English majors or people majoring in English are working in all sorts of jobs productively all over industries across the country and the world, lending their insight that the humanity of literature taught them. These things matter. It's not just go to school, do this, get a job. And that's part of it. We don't value that. It's like, oh, we're all going to go into this thing. So we got to get a job when we get. Of course, you got to get a job. But why not study something and learn something too? Something else different. Yes, you did learn about civics, Mom. There was a question I missed. Dade County was always blue. Now it's all South American red. But yes, but remember something. I'm a Florida boy, Miami boy. Miami always had a red Cuban vote. Castro, people who had fled Castro and fled communism did not want, fear the Democrats were communists ever since Kennedy and the Bay of Pigs and stuff like that. But it was a southern state, Mom. Don't forget the whole South was blue. Texas was blue. Georgia was blue. So very important to know it was a Democratic state, but it was a different Democratic Party. Democratic Party meant different things. Certainly it's trended Republican since the 80s. Of course, Barack Obama won it twice and Bill Clinton got it once. Oh, yeah. So I'm just waiting on some more questions to see if there are any questions. Oh, will we see more dirty moderate candidates moving forward? I think we will. I think you're going to see, certainly you're going to see several moderates like Abigail Spanberger and Alyssa Slotkin, congresswomen, both in Virginia and Michigan, respectively, won their tight elections in a tight year. Moderate Democrats, middle of the road, pro-national security, supporting most of Biden's agenda, but not crazy on stuff and not too woke, not all that. And then, so you will see that. And I think you are going to see a lot. You're definitely going to see some more Republicans exert their mainstream conservative bona fides, right? Just owning some of the normalcy of this, especially as Trump recedes. I'm not saying he's receding. I still think he's in the picture, but I do think electoral strategies, they don't have to announce it. They're going to go out there and try to run people that don't necessarily have to be afraid of Trump. They can say, man, you're a loser. Keep losing. You lose. And America loses, because it is America or Trumpism, and you can't have both. Folks, subscribe to the show and our Substack at dirtymoderate.com. We have so much more to come on the podcast now through the end of the year and into the next year. Do not forget to go to tpublic.com, where all of our merchandise is in various colors for your baby and your mother and your sister. Be proud and wear your pride shirt. Wear your maroon shirt. Take up our slogans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. We're saving democracy one episode at a time. Follow this show on Instagram and Twitter at Dirty Moderate. That's at Dirty Moderate. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, subscribe. Amazon, Google, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Pandora, Stitch, all these places, platforms I've never even heard of. And finally and lastly, the 2024 presidential campaigns have already begun. So go to vote.org. We're in it already, guys. I can't believe we're going to do it again. But guess what? Authoritarianism is counting on your exhaustion and your depletion. Democracy requires your efforts, and democracy needs you. And so do we. Folks, thank you for joining us on these 2 nights. In the meantime, stay dirty, stay moderate, and stay safe.